Welcome to The Value of One, The Power of All, a podcast created by the Rhodes Scholar Program. Since 1996, this organization has been investing in the next generation of African American leaders, and this podcast highlights the stories of the people that make this program special. I'm your host, Ray Pryor, 2015 Ron Brown Scholar, and today I'm excited to share my conversation with Florence Onyiuke, a 2022 Ron Brown Scholar, and as of last week, the first Rhodes Scholar in the program's history. Take a listen. Florence, thank you so much for joining the Ron Brown podcast. Appreciate you being here.
Of course. Really excited to be here today. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, just congratulations to you for what this most recent and newest and first among many accolades that you will receive. I can't imagine what this means for you and for your family and for everybody who's poured into you over the course of your life. You know, you're a Ron Brown Scholar, you're a Coca-Cola Scholar, you know, you're a Penn. You've had a lot of things go well. I imagine this might feel different, though. Does it feel like a different accolade than the rest, or is it just kind of business usual in your world?
It's definitely different than the rest. I'll start by saying I'm from Florida. So I grew up in Florida with my mom and my brother, and I'm from a family, and I don't even think it's my family. I think it's just me. I'm a really late reactor to things. Like, things will happen. Like, I got into college and I got the announcement that I got into college, and it took like 3 days to sink in that I had gotten into like Yale and Harvard and Penn and like all these Ivy Leagues, and then it slowly started to kick in. So that's just always been me, though. And I think for the first time, like, this hit me immediately. Like, the day it happened, the day I heard the news, the gravity of all of it was very immediate. I remember sitting in the conference room with the other 14 finalists in Birmingham, Alabama, where my interview took place. Came out and they said, "We have our 2 winners." And they were like, "Flo." And they named the other kid, Rotimi, who won. And all I could do were like handshaking, FaceTime my mom. And literally all I could say was, "Yep." And she started screaming and running around the house on FaceTime. So it was unreal. Like, this is truly, like, I don't want to say the pinnacle of success for me, because I know greater is coming, but this was like unreal. This is unreal. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that story of how you found out. I was curious. I've never
Yeah.
been privileged to be anywhere near where you are. I was listening to an interview of a professor at U Chicago who won the Nobel Prize in economics, and he was saying he gets a phone call at like 4 a.m. from Sweden, and that's how you kind of know, oh, you won. You know, it's not like something you do in person. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that. What was the trip like after coming home from Birmingham? Maybe you went back to school and you just had to be like, yep, now I'm going to class, and nobody else, does anybody else know, or can they know at that time? Or do you have to kind of keep it hush hush for a little while until they release it?
I think I was hush hush up until the point of me winning. CURF has its own like fellowships department that I was informed that I needed to notify the minute I won, or as soon as I knew that I was confirmed that I had won. They also did it so that like they had put together like a preset press release of what would have been said assuming I won, and they had sent this to me like a week in advance, and like, assuming you win, this is going out like Sunday morning, 5 a.m. sharp. And it did. I woke up that morning to text from like everyone under the sun, all my friends, all my family, like, "Hey Flo, like, you're on the Penn Today website, you're on the Instagram, you're on everything." So yeah.
Very cool. Well, maybe let's kind of rewind the clock a bit. You've had versions of these moments that, like you said, maybe took a second to settle in.
Yeah.
You know, one of them could have been becoming a Ron Brown Scholar, and then maybe a little earlier than that, or maybe a little later, you found out you're going to Penn, and then all of the schools that you got into. What kind of stands out from that season of senior year of high school, and maybe how does that compare to how you're feeling now, wrapping up your time in college?
I definitely feel like I feel like I felt my own self mature as an individual, and it's funny because in the process of having to apply for the Rhodes, you have to speak to a lot of people who have known you since freshman year, either to recommend you or just to advise you on, like, you know, what best is for you to present about yourself as you sit in front of these panelists of people who have never met you but must walk away with a positive impression of you. Yeah, I've definitely, I've seen myself mature, like, quite a bit. Just even mature in terms of, like, how I apply for stuff and, like, how I approach applications and what parts of my life and my story do I feel like I need to share, or do I feel are necessary to share. So that's been pretty nice to see. It was funny because I had like a very brief powwow with Miss Evans Grievous and Holly Duke, with the two of them before like the week before heading off, and they were just like giving me all the tips and tricks, and they were like, you should feel pretty prepared for this though, because you've done the group interview thing, the solo interview for Ron Brown, and it's like, it's true, like, I have, like, this is not the first time, so that was really nice. Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's cool. You know, we were eager to hear the news and excited on that Sunday morning to find out with everybody else. Um, Maybe before I ask you to talk about what you're excited about to go pursue, and studying in the UK and what you plan to do with that. Um, I know you're in the Huntsman program at Penn, and we've had a few Ron Brown scholars participate in that, which I think is just a really cool thing. And normally, all of y'all are brilliant. Every Ron Brown scholar is brilliant, but the exposure that you guys get to both business and international relations and languages and culture is, if you could mold an ideal global citizen, it probably would have pieces of all of that. So can you just share a little bit about what your time at Penn has been like, just
Through
in
that
that
program.
program? And
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the Huntsman program for sure has made my time at Penn. I kind of applied to it on a whim. I applied to every college that I did senior year, thinking I would do international relations for sure. Like I was very set on doing that. And then econ. I'd probably do a double major in econ. And then I came across this program by happenstance on a Google search, and the two things combined. So you get the international relations degree and then you get the business degree from Wharton. So I was like, perfect. And I was really fortunate to get in. But yeah, I think the exposure you get from this program, in terms of just not even exposure in terms of like interdisciplinary and academics, and that we have to kind of take classes across both schools. So that's in the college and in Wharton. So you have to take the international relations, you have to take the critical seminar, Huntsman seminar, which is on like global political thought. But then you also have to take the finance and the accounting, all that kind of fundamental business stuff. That has been really insane. But I think what is even more insane is like the global exposure. Like I have found myself traveling like to a degree that was unimaginable, coming out of senior year of high school, in college. Huntsman has taken me to Ireland, has taken me to South Africa, has taken me to Argentina, has taken me to Madrid, has taken me to Barcelona. Like I have been everywhere on this program, and all for like true academic pursuits. So yeah, if I could, this is not a paid advertisement for Huntsman, but if you want to apply to Huntsman, I would recommend you do so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I've heard nothing but great things, and it seems like it's an awesome opportunity. Does any of the places that you've been to or any of those trips kind of stand out as maybe really impactful or transformative in just how you saw the world and yourself, that you've had so far?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's my most recent one. So I just wrapped up a semester about in Barcelona. That was my spring of my junior year. And that I think was the most transformative. That's because I was there for a longer period of time. So I was there for 4.5, 5-ish months. And during that time, I began my research, my thesis, and which is on informal migrant populations, West African populations in Barcelona. I've always been interested in West Africa, and trying to understand what diaspora communities look like. So not only people that live in West Africa and remain there their whole life, but also when they leave, what does life look like for them? And I think Barcelona provided a great example of some of the struggles that you find West African communities face when they move into these so-called developed countries that still just don't have the frameworks, either in terms of policy frameworks or immigration frameworks, to accommodate these new individuals. So I set out there and I did interviews with manteros, or they call them top manta more casually, or street vendors in Barcelona, to really understand like why is it that they were performing this labor for 10, 15, 20 years. And it was like really humbling to hear some of these men and women's story, but also just like kind of reignited the passion that I have for research and doing research on West African communities. So yeah, most certainly my time in Barcelona.
Yeah, very cool. It sounds like you probably will continue a version of that. What are you looking forward to studying after Penn and with the Rhodes? And yeah, where do you think life will kind of take you moving
Yeah,
forward now that you've been so many places?
definitely want to focus on like the niche of economic development. So I'm going to do African studies, African development. While I'm at Oxford will be my first degree, and the second degree is a little bit TBD. I might get my MBA. I might do something in sustainable enterprise, to be determined. But long story short, what I want to do in the long term is to really focus on African development, particularly in West Africa.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
As you probably have heard, a lot of things that people can say about the continent. Two things that come to mind that you probably spend some time thinking about. One is everyone saying that it's the next best place to make an investment in infrastructure, and second would be population trends and demographics. It's
Yeah.
very young and all that happens. There are probably plenty of things that excite you, but anything stand out about what you're looking to explore or study in West Africa or other parts of the continent, even while you're at Oxford?
I think definitely the first thing you mentioned stands out, the growth potential. in Africa, and that's in terms of like infrastructure development growth. I think I'm most excited that for kind of a little bit of a controversial reason, because as much as the stats have shown that Africa is growing tremendously and it's kind of the next big thing, a lot of people currently are like doing a run on Africa and like pulling foreign direct investment, pulling a bunch of capital from Africa day by day. And it has a lot to do with our current like supply chain global situation with tariffs and whatnot. Um, but I actually think that's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing because I think it will force African countries to build on their own, and to kind of relinquish some of the dependencies that we've seen in past years. So I'm actually really excited for what that will look like in the next like 5-10 years for Africa.
Yeah, very cool. I remember this was a very big deal when South Africa hosts the World Cup, and
Mm,
the opportunity for other global events. The NBA is starting to do a lot of things there.
yeah.
What do you kind of see as the unlock for development on the continent? Is it? It sounds like it's not necessarily external capital coming in and
Hmm.
doing a lot of things.
Hmm.
That will always be a part of some development strategy,
Yeah.
but it sounds like you have things that are a bit more intrinsic and insular that they can focus on.
Yeah. I think social enterprising is something that can go a long way in Africa, particularly in West Africa, because I think one thing that I believe strongly is that talent is universal, opportunity is not. I think there's a lot of talented individuals in West Africa, but they do not have like the entrepreneurial ecosystem that you see in places like US, for instance. We have Silicon Valley, and we have like that whole SF infrastructure for people who want to enter the startup space. In China, they have Shenzhen and Guangdong. Like they have whole countries or whole cities, I should say, that are dedicated to like really like funneling through entrepreneurs and building this ecosystem for people to get access to, whether it resources or capitals. There is not an equivalent in West Africa, and I think that's exactly what we need. So my whole passion is to go into social enterprising there to really look at like what might microfinancing look like for, again, informal workers, which is what my research is currently on. Because these are people who might sell fabrics, they might sell cloth, they might sell food. There has to be a way for them to formalize like on their own terms and within their own means, rather than always just trying to push a loan onto someone. I don't think loans are a long-term or stable solution.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I know you have the inklings of what could be an idea for an enterprise.
Yeah.
And I know you've been exploring startup ideas and we had a chance to connect about that earlier. You talked about microfinancing. Any other opportunities that
Yeah.
you think would be cool to see somebody build in, including yourself?
I'm still like really looking into like the agri-tech space. I think it's going to be a big one in Africa, that's for sure. I don't really know what that looks like quite yet. I know there's a lot of companies that are doing agri-tech businesses, a lot for smallholder farmers, particularly in Africa. And they're very successful, but I think um the biggest issue is funding. A lot of them work on discretionary funding, so it's just not able to scale. So I'm really trying to think of what can we do that can actually scale. And so I'm really interested to any ideas anyone has on that, or just any projects anyone is already working on would be of interest to me. Yeah.
Yeah. There are a few that come to mind. That's why I asked. So I'll make sure to connect you with them. How do you feel about going to Oxford, living in London, and kind of experiencing life? You've traveled a lot. I don't know if you've lived abroad
Yeah.
before, or and it sounds like life will naturally take you many places. Is that exciting? Is that nerve wracking? How do you feel? How do you feel getting to move across the pond, as they say, and live over there?
Oh, so I've already started putting together my UK drill album to assimilate fully into the culture. I'm joking.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited. No, I really am excited. I feel like I've like you said, I've traveled quite a bit. This will definitely be the longest term relocation of my life. My study abroad for 5 months was since then been the longest. This will now be the new longest. I'm excited for what life will bring. I think I'm someone that I've never been known to stay in one place. My brother and I were notorious. There would be a high school or elementary school that was 5 minutes away from our house, and we would always go to the one that was 25 minutes away. That's just how we were.
Mhm.
So we're notorious for moving around. So this is like definitely of no shock to my family or anyone that close to me, and it's no shock to me myself. But I'm excited for what London will look like. I visited it very briefly during my time abroad. I think I spent like 2 days there, so didn't get a proper London experience. So this will be my first time like really living and seeing all it has to offer. Yeah.
You just mentioned, which is always the case, I think, for Ron Brown scholars, that even when they go on to do things that people might have thought based on their circumstances growing up would be unimaginable, they seem inevitable and kind of as natural embodiments of who they've always been as kids.
Yeah.
And so what was life like growing up in Florida with your siblings? And were there
Yeah.
any themes of, besides, you and your brother running around, that you think extend to the person that you are now and made you to be so successful in all the endeavors you've had?
Yeah, I would say the biggest theme is, I think just asking questions. I think I grew up in a household where like there was no question too small to ask. Like I think you often think of like the little kid like at Thanksgiving dinner who's like 5 years old and asks you like why is it raining and then what caused the rain. They just have a whole bunch of why questions that you just like at one point just say it's because of God so they can stop asking you the questions. I think that was like definitely the household that I grew up in. Like there was really no question too small or too big to ask. And I think it's honestly just like my love of like not only asking questions, but like really just like searching for some sort of answer that has driven me quite far in life. And I think it's definitely what drove my most recent research that I mentioned. I just truly had a question. I spent the first week in Barcelona, going around enjoying the food and the scenery and all that kind of stuff. But I kept noticing these men like all over the street and they were so visceral. And I just stopped to ask one day, like, hey, like, what is your story and why are you doing this work? And why does it seem like such a very distinct demographic does this work and no one else does it? And he was very willing to share his experience with me. And that's what inspired me to kind of pursue this more as like a research topic. But yeah, I think it's just like asking questions. I grew up asking a bunch of questions. I still ask probably too many questions. I am the wake up at 4 a.m. to Google how tall is the Pope type of person. So like, yeah, yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
Any particular people you want to shout out or thank?
It's my mom and my brother, a huge, biggest it, infinite shout out to them. And then the entire Ron Brown community. I mean, like, we have a chat for the class of 2022 Ron Brown Scholars, and they were one of the first people to like be overly excited and through the moon for me. Mr. Tripp as well got a personal text from him. So I think like I was telling one of my friends that of all my communities, college communities, I think Ron Brown has definitely been like one of the most excited for me. And I think that just speaks to like how powerful this community is and people like truly are rooting for you. Yeah. Shout out to all of them.
Yeah, I had one follow-up question to that. It's something that I've just been curious about asking people. Someone like you, you're at Penn, and then you're also in the Huntsman Program. You're a Coca-Cola scholar. You're a Ron Brown scholar. You're now a Rhodes Scholar. You'll be all of the other scholars over the course of your life. And many of us, including myself, are fortunate to be a part of a few different communities.
Yeah.
But there is something special here that's different. And it's not necessarily where you go to school or what you study or how smart you are or how working you are. But there's something unique that makes Ron Brown feel different for us than all the other ones that we're a part of.
Yeah.
What do you think that is? And why do you think that is? Because I haven't really been able to put my finger on what exactly it is that makes it different.
I think like the most like cliche and surface level answer is that it's just nice to be around people that really do look like you. This is a community of people that look like you. But I think the deeper answer, like beneath that, and that not to dismiss that, I think that is very important. But I think the deeper answer is that this is one of the few communities that I'm in where I truly don't feel that there's any like internal competition. I don't feel like I'm competing against anyone in my cohort. I don't feel like I'm competing against anyone in 3 cohorts ahead of me. And I think that is like really what makes this such a powerful community. Cause like I said, people like are truly genuinely rooting for you. I'll be the first to send someone a link to a scholarship or this that I think they would win. And I don't feel I don't feel like, I would say Ron Brown doesn't have a scarcity mindset. We truly believe everyone can win. And like you see that all across this community.
Yeah, that's well said. That's really what the value of one, the power of all stands for.
Yeah.
Is any one of us individually would do really well because that's who we are, but all of us collectively, there's a synergy where 1 + 1 equals more than 2. I think we understand that more than most others. Man, Florence, this has been great. Thank you so much for
Of course.
coming on the podcast and for sharing your story. Congratulations again.
Thank
And
you.
look forward to having you back whenever you win your next Accolade and have a bunch of great stories to tell from your time abroad.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Value of One, the Power of All, a podcast created by the Ron Brown Scholar Program. If you want to hear more inspiring conversations like this one, don't forget to click subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. To learn more about the organization, check us out at ronbrown.org.